This video is covering more spoilers for Dragons of Tarkir and will focus around good and not so good cards. The first card on our list is part of that not so good I just mentioned. It's Zurgo Bellstriker. Yeah, Zurgo got totally ripped in the New World Order on Tarkir. But anyways, he costs 1 red mana now for a 2/2 legendary orc warrior creature with a dash cost of 1 red and 1 colorless that can't block creatures with power 2 or greater. Wait, what? Even in Limited, where you usually count on seeing your rare cards, I wouldn't be overexcited even if Zurgo was in my opening hand now. He's basically no good late game, as his dash is useless against bigger creatures that will just block and kill him, and he can't block said bigger creatures either. Even in mid game, he just gets blocked. In early game, if your opponent also happens to be playing red, if they lay down a Dragon Lord Servant, it's basically a stalemate with neither card being able to kill the other. Or if your opponent plays a Skill Guard Sentinels, either you're taking 3 damage or blocking the Sentinels and losing Zurgo. Either way, Zurgo is not such a good creature. Even in Limited, where every card can have a place, Zurgo will most likely serve as a filler card, even in a Limited deck. The only place Zurgo might see play is in some sort of Tiny Leaders deck, where his first ability is not such a handicap. But even in a place like Tiny Leaders, +1/+1 counters can be placed and creatures can be made bigger with spells like Giant or Titanic Growth, and yet again Zurgo is just another creature that's left to either attack and die, or sit and do nothing. Dragon Lord Jamoka is a 5/7 flying lifelink legendary Elder Dragon that costs 1 white, 1 green, and 4 colorless. She can't be countered and your opponent can't cast spells on your turn. In Limited, this card will obviously see play, especially if counter spells are printed later in the set. Even if there are no counter spells, this will still see play. Her power kills most everything in the set so far, and her toughness protects her from just about every other creature in the set as well. Flying gives her evasion, and lifelink makes her that much better as a blocker. Standard play for this card isn't hard to imagine in sideboards of decks like Abzan against decks like Blue-Black Control, but you need to find a way to make her hexproof so she isn't destroyed by means of Hero's Downfall. Champion's Helm can keep Jamoka around permanently, but Ranger's Guile will be situational protection. In Modern, Jamoka could see play in sideboards against control decks, but by turn 6 control decks have had just enough time to set themselves up and have just enough mana to, well, control you. And since she doesn't have hexproof, she's also vulnerable to removal. This is a minor fix, however, since cards like Alpha Authority and Swiftfoot Boots exist to make things more resilient. Shikiri Raptor is a 3/3 lizard beast creature card with Death Touch with a mana cost of 2 green and 1 colorless mana. This also has a Megamorph of 1 green and 4 colorless mana to turn the card face up. The normal 3 colorless mana cost applies to playing this card face down to make it a 2/2 morph creature. The triggered ability of this card is whenever another permanent you control is turned face up, you may return Shikiri Raptor from the graveyard face down or face up. In Limited, this card will see play with other Megamorph creature cards like Gadul Lurker or a nice combo with Salt Road Ambushers. This card may get better as the rest of Dragons of Tarkir set is released. Even without other Megamorph cards, Shikiri Raptor can be easily played since he is a 3/3 Death Touch creature. In standard decks, this card doesn't have a place yet, but with the introduction of the new Megamorph mechanic, there might be a new deck type available. The largest constraint of this card is due to the morph cost of 3 colorless mana for all morph creatures. That's a high cost to pay for a 2/2 creature, and thus this card in standard or even modern won't see much play. In EDH, this card may be a filler card or considered a budget card at best. If there was an EDH deck that mana ramped and centric with the Megamorph mechanic, then this card would be a great addition to that said deck. The next card on the list is Ajatai Exemplars. It costs 2 white and 2 colorless for a 4/4 human monk. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to activate one of his 3 abilities. The first is tap target creature. The second is Ajatai Exemplars gains first strike and lifelink until end of turn. The third and final ability is exile Ajatai Exemplars, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. In Limited, if you pull enough instant and sorcery spells to repeatedly activate the Exemplar's 3 abilities, he's an absolute powerhouse by tapping your opponent's creature, and then if you play a second spell, he gets first strike and lifelink, making him a great attacker. Or you can choose to save him as a blocker on your opponent's turn, cast an instant and give him first strike and lifelink, and then watch your opponent decide whether or not if their attack is still worth it. In Standard, this is the card a deck like Blue-White Heroic was looking for. Every time you play spells on your heroic creatures, you can also tap down your opponent's creatures to help get your creatures in for a direct attack on your opponent. You could also try making a control deck and use this card with Pressure Point to tap down creatures en masse and continuously draw into more spells. Even in Modern, this card could see play in decks like Blue-White Control or any other decks that have a higher spell-to-creature ratio. Well, so far that's it for Dragons of Tarkir spoilers, but be sure to check back later as there could be more that crop up later in the day. What are your thoughts on Dragons of Tarkir? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, remember to subscribe, and we will see you next time for more spoilers.